Half a day and good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operation and Appropriations now called to order. Today is Thursday, June 6th. The time now is 2 p.m. In compliance with open government law, the notice for this public hearing were posted on GovGuam Public Notice Portal on GTA TV Channel 21, Docomo Channel 117, and live stream on the Guam Legislature YouTube, and disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets beginning on Friday, May 24th, and then again on Tuesday, June 4th. Today, the agenda is in reference specifically to Bill number 236-37 COR, Committee on Rules by the request of I Magaʹhågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriations for the operation of the executive branch of the Governor of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provision, specifically reference to the Department of Administration. At this time, I ask Mr. Byrne to please rise, and he'll be placed under oath by the Sergeant Arm.
Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Mr. Chair, he's under oath. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. The general rules for this budget hearing. Please provide my legislative staff with any document for photocopy and distribution. Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony that may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for this proceeding. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted from the room. Whew. I do this at every budget hearing, folks. Okay? When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge Senator Fisher for joining me this afternoon. And with that, I'd ask Mr. Byrne to please present his budget for the Department of Administration. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, thank you for inviting us to present to you some very important information about our agency and the budget which we have proposed for fiscal 25. I should mention before I start that the Deputy Director is off island on leave, and that's why she's not here today. Behind me, and if I may, I'll introduce them a bit later, we have some representatives from DOA, and I will introduce them shortly. But I'd like to make some preliminary remarks first about the duties of DOA. DOA is basically the machinery of government. We make government work. We take off from agencies most administrative duties in order that they can concentrate upon their mandate. So we take away all the nasty parts of government. We have to deal with finance, we have to deal with HR, and as you know, we also have to deal with procurement. The duties of the DOA director are also many, and actually the duties of the DOA director sort of pop up in various places throughout Guam Code Annotated. But this budget is really concerned with the core workings of DOA, so we'll concentrate on that. We've made a structural change within the agency, and in response to comments that we've received from you senators and from others, we've separated out recruitment from HR, so the recruitment can really concentrate on the business of recruiting people, whereas HR can look after all the other aspects, which include record keeping, employee management, drug testing, training, and all the other activities that you would expect an HR department to undertake. We've introduced in February, as you're aware, the new GFMIS system and its associated systems the EHR web system, which deals with HR and payroll, the budget system, and the data warehouse, which is a whole new concept of collecting all the information from the other systems and presenting them together in one easy-to-access format. Why have we done all this? Well, firstly, the old system had been in operation for 34 years, and it was tired. We want the system to do things that are routine, and each of us, I think, over the last few weeks, have had some education into what artificial intelligence can do. We in the new system has some elements of that in that the system now recognizes, once invoices have been put into the system, it now recognizes invoices, and you don't have to put in all the information. It knows where to pick out the information that's used for posting. Part of the reason for doing this is we have staffing challenges. It's very hard, and we'll explain some of that shortly. It's very hard constantly to fill every position that we need. Therefore, we want to get machines to do the things that are routine, so we can ask people to do the things that challenge people. We're responsible for completing the financial statements, which leads to the audit for government-wide, and that involves getting information from many, many sources, putting it together, and making sure that the financial statements make sense. It looks this year as though we're not going to meet the June 30th date, mainly, and I'm not attributing any blame, but we don't expect the DOE audit, which is part of the general fund, and a significant part of the general fund, to be completed in time. As far as the activities of DOA is concerned, we have been providing information to the auditors, Ernst & Young. We've been putting it into their system, and generally we've been on time in matching their deadlines. We're one of the agencies that was on the infamous list of 22 from the Attorney General. On Monday, we received from the Attorney General a withdrawal of the 3 letters that he sent us. We're not really sure what this means. It's early days yet, and I don't think we've actually seen anything that was previously held up at the Attorney General yet emerge back to the agency. So we're kind of in a waiting mode to see what will happen on that. I hope it's a move in the right direction. We want government to move forward, not sideways or backwards. So we're looking forward to reaching some understanding of what the Attorney General will do. Now, if I may, I'd like to introduce some of the slides that we have. Thank you. If you could move to the next slide. It's hard to see, but we'll give you a printout of this. It's our fiscal 25 budget request. It shows that we have 109 people that are funded, and we'll show this on the next slide, with a mixture of funding sources. In addition to the 109 people, we have 20 that are federally funded and operate in the homeowners assistance, rental assistant offices. They're federally funded, so they're not listed on here, but they also make a significant contribution to the work of DOA. Next slide, please. This shows that we get our funding from three different funds. Most of our funding comes from the general fund. Some of our funding, in particular in support of payroll and some accounting activities, comes from the indirect cost fund, which is a fund that's created from collecting the indirect cost percentages for federal grants, and they're deposited by law into this fund and used to support several agencies, including DOA. And we get a little bit of funding from the Limited Gaming Fund. But as you can see, like 90% of our funding actually comes from the general fund. Next slide, please. When we submitted our budget, we included these positions in our budget submission. The budget cap that was imposed in the executive budget removed these positions. There are as you can see, one person. We need a chief internal auditor. The internal audit department has done a great job, and very often, mostly, we're ahead of the OPA in doing audits, and we can do them much more quickly because we have much more limited objectives. We need to make sure that our HR department is fully staffed, otherwise the processing of any type of personnel movement is held up. And I'll address accountants again in a few minutes, but the division of accounts obviously needs accountants. So we're asking that this $652,000 be restored to DOA so that we can fully fund these positions for fiscal 25. Next slide, please. This gives you some idea of what DOA does. And I heard you say, Mr. Chairman, this morning that DRT collects 90% of the revenues. Well, DOA deals with 100% of everything. And so you can see here the volumes that we processed during fiscal 23. This is for the whole of fiscal 23. There's one figure here that stands out that I should mention. The 19.9 million of encumbrances deobligated is not a usual number. That happened because we were clearing out a lot of accounts in anticipation of having the new system. And as you'll see, during fiscal 24, the number has gone back to a much more normal figure. But this gives you an idea of the volumes of transactions that we have to process. And if you could look at the next slide, please, it shows the similar information year to date. There's nothing that I would say is particularly out of order for year to date. We're processing this volume. As the 281 million of federal expenditures is probably going to turn into about 600,000 by the time we get, 600 million, I beg your pardon, by the time we get to the end of the year. Because agencies tend to wait towards the second half of the year to use up their grants, fearful that the grants are going to run out. Usually they don't, but that's why we tend to get most of the federal expenditure in the second half of the year. Next slide, please. This slide contains 3 positions where we've had difficulty filling these positions over the last 3 years. All of them have continuous job announcements, so were somebody to apply, we would certainly quickly consider them. The Buyer 1s and Buyer 2s, we believe, are insufficiently, the pay for these job holders is insufficient. So we're going to look and the qualifications and eligibilities and try and find out if we can actually put these positions in a different pay grade. Accountants continues to be a challenge, not only for us, it's a problem nationally. Nationwide, everybody is having a hard time finding accountants. Even our auditors have a hard time finding accountants. And sometimes we're in competition for them because they have the ability to employ them very quickly, whereas we don't. We certainly appreciate their efforts to complete the audit, and they need accountants too, but we're the ones that are charged with actually preparing the financials. I understand, and I'm going to talk to UOG about this, that the university and I'm sure they're trying to improve their accountant outcomes, but they put some barriers in to admitting students into the accounting courses. And that doesn't help us to get the right number of accountants out of those courses. So I'm going to talk to UOG about that, because that actually is one of the duties of the DOA director, is to promote accounting education along with UOG and GCC. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the challenges we have with some of the autonomous agencies who are able to pay accountants and other professionals much more than we can. Even though we made a significant adjustment under the general pay plan, generally we're still behind in pay status with some of these agencies, in particular GPA and GWA, and I've noted that they've just recently issued proposals for increasing their pay scales, and that will only exacerbate the problem so far as general government is concerned. Next slide, please. We were asked to update the status of the GFMIS employee training, so this is an update on where we are currently with training. Most of the training will begin in a week and a half. We have various sessions set up. Next slide, please. And the next. Most people will get in-person training, but there's a limit to each class, because very often, with fire regulations, we can only put so many people in a room. So there will be also computer-based training. We have currently 164 users enrolled in the training, which is encouraging. There are a few departments who haven't yet enrolled, and we'll be contacting them with the intention of making sure that they do get enrolled. Again, thanks to the people, some of the people that are behind me, anybody who needed information in this period while we were implementing the new system only needed to call accounting and they got help. Accounting was always there to help them, to show them where the information was from, and indeed to give them the necessary figures. The one area where we're still working on a module is in federal grants. Originally, this was designed to be implemented next year, but we've made a great deal of progress with this, and the current implementation date is October. Next slide, please. This shows it's an extract from the contract with Performer and shows the payments that are to be made for the first 3 years. And in clarification, I want to make clear to you, Senators, that the payment for this contract is a separate budget. It was separately submitted to you by BBMR in the executive budget request. And there is sufficient funding in that to satisfy the required payments for fiscal 25. And that's the end of the slide presentation. Important information that I certainly want to deliver to you is the progress that we've made since we have implemented the new system in reducing all the backlogs that were there inherent in the old system. AP aging, these are invoices that are in the system that weren't paid. Well, when I first got to DOA in the bad old days, it was something like 41 million. Generally, over the last few years, it's come down to about 24 million. But currently, it's standing at about 4 million. Likewise, as far as procurement is concerned, I don't think we actually knew what the backlog of procurement was under the old system. With the new system, it's very visible. I'm sure, receive comments from agencies about the difficulties of procurement. Procurement is difficult. Procurement is lengthy. Procurement is time-consuming. But at least now you can look into the system and know where we are. You can look into the system and GSA can tell where the holdup is. Very often the holdup was in the agency, and we now can identify that and get back to the agency and advise them what they should do in order to cure the procurement holdup. I'm very, very proud of the work that is done by the staff at DOA. They work really, really hard. They work together, which is important. I would commend their work to you, Senators, and to anybody else who's listening. It's hard work. It's detailed work, but they do it with a smile, and I thank them for it.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to recognize also a colleague that have joined us, Senator Frank Blas. And Mr. Byrne, on the area of, let me see, what slide number was that? I guess personnel requests. I agree with you. And you're right, yeah. Revenue tax brings in about 90%, but you process just about 100% of everything else in Gov Guam. So how you guys survive is amazing. And I do appreciate all your folks, what they do. And I'm concerned about that funding that personal request to make sure that if we can get it in, we'll get it in. Okay, so we'll see that at the end of the road.
Thank you, sir.
All right. And with that, I really don't really have a lot of questions. I've always called you and got questions answered. And with that, I'll ask Senator Fisher if he has any questions for you, sir.
Just a couple. Thank you, Mr. Byrne and the rest of the folks from DOA. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to, Senator Joe pointed out to me that in your fiscal year 2025 budget digest, you have for fiscal year 2025 a total, I guess, request for $543,329, correct?
I'm sorry, Senator, that was for what?
I'm reading from the Department of Administration summary, Government of Guam fiscal year 2025 budget digest.
Yeah.
Page 2. Go to the next page.
Oh,
Yeah.
On the top right, it gives you a total of 543. Not adding your additional personnel request. This is just straight up. Are you seeing what we're talking about?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. Vanessa, can you show Mr. Byrne? Yeah, if you can just show him where we're at and what Senator Fisher's asking. As a matter of fact, it's that copy of your document that you're on the flyer.
Sorry, which number are you looking at?
Could you repeat the number again?
What did she say?
What was it?
Oh, what number are you looking at?
I was looking at the 543.
Yes.
It reflects that on top right, up on top. It starts out with FY 2025 and FY 2024, letter LK column. It gives a total of personnel service of 514.
I see, thank you. That's the variance between 25 and 24.
Yes, so, so you need, for the personnel costs, you'll need, you project the need for $543,329.
Sir, it's 652,000 is the need.
Okay, well, here, you see that number 543?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the difference between the fiscal 24 budget and what we're asking for
this year.
for fiscal 25.
Right,
But
which-
in addition to that is the 652.
Okay, yeah, let me get to that.
yeah.
Right now, you're asking for an additional $543,329, but I understand that you're asking for an additional.
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm trying to.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, so if things all go according to plan, you would be receiving $543,329 plus $652,071.
Yes, sir.
And that's to fill the personal requests for, okay, that's all I was asking. If you could stay on that same sheet of paper, if you could drop down to total utilities, the difference is $172,244. That column is L minus K, so that would be 187 minus 143. Should this actually, 172, should that be reflecting a debit?
Yes, we didn't prepare this.
Oh,
This was BBMR. But there has been a change in utilities in power in that we moved GSA from PT to the ITC building.
Okay.
And the PT building was very power hungry. So we actually did reduce power consumption because power is in the rent at the ITC building.
Okay, that's fine, but it seems like 172,244 should be a parenthetical.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that is there an overall miscalculation in this column? Because I know you can't do this on the fly.
Yes, sir. But as I say, it didn't come from us, but we will fix it for you.
Okay. I mean, it's not going to be a in the grand scheme of things. It's not significant.
Yes, sir, there is.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Byrne, and thank you, DOA. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Blas, do you have any questions for Mr. Byrne?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. But first, how much time do I have?
How much you need, sir? One question, you're good.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good afternoon, Mr. Byrne. How are you doing? I think you should know pretty much where at least one of the questions I'm going to have. Where are we at with your merit bonuses for your agency?
For our agencies, I think we're almost done. I think we're down to about 20,000.
Okay, so there is a couple more, I mean, a
Yes.
few more employees
Yes.
then.
Yes.
Okay,
That are being processed by the agencies.
Okay, how about overall within the...
Overall, I mean, I really don't know what's going on. I know you have a bill for GMH, but I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'll just share with you. I've had some conversations with some people at Public Health, and they said Public Health has said they turned in all the paperwork to you guys, and now it's up to you guys.
Yeah, I think we paid out a whole lot of Public Health ones
No, you didn't.
about 3 weeks ago.
Well, as of yesterday, unless you paid out some today, there were still some people that were. Can you please have somebody check on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Lastly, with regard to grant funding and agencies that utilize grant funding, what is the normal process for an agency, if an agency had received X amount of money, X amount of dollars in grants for their operations? What is the process by which is utilized to use that money? Let's start with a bulk part figure. Let's say $100. Okay, they got $100.
Okay.
So,
Okay, this is the process
Yes.
that is generally used for most grants, right? So we get a notice of award from the awarding agency. The award is to Department of Administration because we're the ones responsible eventually for drawing down the funds. The notice of award is turned into an establishment of an account. So within the accounting system, account is set up for that $100. We break that down, between the object codes. But basically, the total grant would add up to $100. The awarded agency then uses that account to charge either personnel costs or a PO or whatever the relevant expense is until that grant is exhausted. Meanwhile, DOA records that expenditure and draws down the expenditure as is expended from the federal grantor. There's about 3 different federal drawdown websites, but most of them come from the one that actually run by DPA, by Health and Human Services. And when the money is drawn down, it's drawn down into our federal account, and then if general account funds were originally used to pay that expense, the general fund is refunded. Or if it's an invoice that has to be paid, the invoice is paid because we have only a few days under the federal rules to pay it. The invoice is paid with those funds.
okay, so in the case of, for the most part, we use local money to pay it first and then request a drawdown to reimburse.
It's a mixture. I mean, if it's payroll, yes, because we have to pay people at the end of each pay period.
Right.
Generally, we don't pay invoices until we actually have the federal funds in hand. We do make an exception for Medicaid payments because they've been a bit tardy coming out of public health. So we generally do pay those about the same time we draw the money, and it's usually a couple of days before we get the funding from Health and Human Services.
Okay, but in the case of, I guess we're talking payroll now. In the case of a program that allows you to pay salaries plus benefits, your general fund, the monies from local monies pay that, then we request for the drawdown to reimburse us.
Yes, because they're reimbursement type grants.
The question, under what fund or what account is this general fund money in? I mean, to be able to take it out, put it over here, and then get reimbursed.
That's not the way it works. The expense is charged to the federal account.
Right.
And there's a due from, due to in the accounting between the federal fund and the general fund.
What happens if in the case where in the federal fund, the general fund pays more than what the federal fund, or you can't use the federal fund, there's a restriction on it? How does that get paid?
That's only happened in one case,
Right.
Or in the case of one agency. Because of the way the account is set up, we shouldn't be able to draw down more than the federal award because the federal award was set up as the limit when the account was established.
Okay, so based on that, there's really no way you're going to be able to draw or to expend more than what you can draw?
We've had a case, there is one, in the, I think you perhaps have already been informed by the public auditor that there is an issue with some accounts at Homeland.
Okay.
And that is the only significant account where we've been unable to draw down the money as it's been expended.
So what money did we spend to be able to pay for these if we couldn't draw it now?
We've had to use general fund money in order to pay for the people.
Okay, so then it goes to what account? What account do we use in the general fund to be able to pay this?
It's just a general general fund account. It's
You and
like
I both know how much
It's like
we-
a suspense account.
You and I both know how much that, what that sum total is, and my concern is, where do we get the money?
Well, the money comes from the bank account. It's a suspense account that we use because we have to pay people the payroll. Otherwise, we get in trouble with Department of Labor.
I don't want to jump the gun too much on it. I just wanted a little bit more from your take as to,
It's a general accounting technique is to use a suspense account when you can't charge off the money to a authorized account.
Okay. There's a law that exists that basically says that if you don't have money in the account, you can't certify that there's money in the account, therefore you can't spend.
And that certification comes from Homeland.
Okay. But does Homeland rely on you guys, or have they called you to be able to find out as to whether or not there's money in that account so that they can certify that there's money in the account, or they just went ahead and certified and hope to God there was money in the account?
No, they're well aware of the situation.
Okay. I don't want to jump the gun too much on this thing. I want to stay on this thing, but I am worried. Can I ask for, if you can, not now today, you don't have to be today, an update on where we are with the merit bonus?
Yes.
We do have a bill that's going to be heard next week, and part of that bill is a figure that was provided. The last time you gave me a report was what you had remaining. I just want to know, because if that's now considerably less, which I hope it is, then we can make an amendment to that so that we can reduce that amount.
Yes, certainly.
But still provide you the means to be able to provide it.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That didn't hurt.
Thank you, Senator Blas. See, this is what happens when you can work with people, folks.
Yes, we are very easy to work with.
Yes, you are. I mean, you're the guy that when we need to know what's going on, we call you. We'll know exactly when you're going to cut a check or if there's even funds, and if it's allowed. But with that,
May I just
yes,
introduce the
please.
people behind, because they've taken the trouble to.
All right,
come down
please,
here.
yeah, please do recognize your folks.
Yes, thank you. It's John Camacho and Bob Titano. John Camacho is from accounting. Bob Titano is the assistant personnel administrator. In the back is Flo Salas, who's the DOA ASO. Ivan Pamo, who's been doing a lot in implementing the new system and the training for the new system. Andy Kittiger, who is the acting CPO and has been doing a great job over the months while she's been acting, and has been, like I mentioned, largely responsible for the reduction in the outstanding procurements. And not least, Mike Crabell, also from accounting, who deals with all the invoices that come in from agencies and getting it into the system and sorting out where they should be, whether they're for POs, direct payments, or for whatever the source is.
All right, sir. Thank you. And
Mr. Chair,
again,
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
Do you have an HR administrator, or did you lose him recently?
The Personnel Service Administrator resigned.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Being that there's no one else to present any testimony on reference to your budget, Mr. Burton, on Department of Administration, the committee will close this hearing. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending this hearing and for providing feedback and suggestion. Department Administration's budget hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 2:39. Sizus Mase, and thank you, Mr. Burns. And please be safe. And thank you, folks. And thank all your employees for doing what they do. Take care.